The low hum of the engines vibrated gently through the cabin, a soft rhythm almost calming enough to lull someone to sleep. The plane sliced upward through a wall of thick clouds, revealing a sky so blue it looked painted. Passengers settled into their seats, some scrolling lazily through their phones, others pretending to read magazines while sneaking glances at the view outside. To everyone else, this was nothing more than a routine flight. Just another trip from one place to another, but not for the man in seat for 2A. He sat quietly, elbow resting against the window, eyes fixed on the world drifting by beneath him. This wasn't just travel. This was a return, and a reminder of the life waiting for him. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was a single father trying to hold himself together for a little girl who still believed he could fix anything. His 10-year-old daughter's drawings were tucked carefully into his carry-on, edges worn from being held too often. Sometimes, when the nights felt too long and the house felt too empty, he'd look at them just to hear her laughter echo softly in his mind. He had learned to carry on, learned to be both father and mother, protector and comforter even on the days when grief pressed hardest against his chest to him. This flight was supposed to be simple, safe, ordinary. He was just another passenger heading home, at least. That's what he believed. But fate rarely stays quiet. Sometimes it creeps in softly, disguised as normalcy, before turning everything upside down. Before I pull you deeper into what happened on this flight, take a moment. If this story is already pulling at your curiosity of tales of courage, sacrifice, and love still matter to you, then like this video. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Whispers of Keenness, so more hearts can find stories like this. Now, let's continue. The captain's voice suddenly crackled through the intercom, warm and cheerful. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We'll be cruising at 37,000 feet, and if you look out to your right, you might catch a glimpse of two of our finest United States Air Force F-16s on patrol. Heads instantly turned, passengers pressed against the windows, phones lifted, whispers rising. And there they were, to razor-sharp fighter jets, slicing through the sky like predators guarding their territory. Sunlight glittered off their wings as they flew in perfect sync, powerful and effortless. A wave of excitement washed through the cabin. Wow, those guys are real heroes, someone said under their breath, but seat for 2A didn't move. The man didn't reach for his phone, didn't lean toward the window like everyone else. He just stared, still as stone, and in his eyes, just for a moment, something flickered. Recognition, pain, a memory he didn't want but couldn't escape. His jaw tightened, a small, controlled reaction only someone used to discipline would show. Then he forced his gaze back to the clouds, and that's when everything changed. The intercom crackled, not the captain this time. This was something else. A faint transmission bled into the cabin, scrambled at first, mixed with static. Most passengers barely paid attention, assuming it was just some cockpit chatter. But the man in 42A went rigid. He knew that rhythm, those clipped phrases, that coded language meant for trained ears only. The transmission sharpened. Confirm visual. Stand by. Did you say his name was on the manifest? What's his call sign? A tense pause followed. It felt like the sky itself held its breath. Then clear, cold, unmistakable. Call sign, Iron Eagle. Instantly, the F-16s shifted. In perfect, terrifying precision, both jets snapped into a tight formation beside the commercial plane, wings angling in a sharp, unmistakable salute. Gasps burst through the cabin. Phones dropped. Mothers gripped armrests. The fighters weren't just flying near them, they were honoring someone, right here, inside. This plane, the man in 4-2 through the window. One of the F-16 pilots slowly lifted a gloved hand to his helmet, delivering a salute meant for one person and one person only. Passengers twisted in their seats, eyes scanning until they landed on him, the quiet man. They hadn't noticed until now, but he didn't move. He couldn't. He sat, frozen. Breath caught in his chest, heart pounding so violently he could feel it in his throat. Old memories he'd buried long ago surged back with the force of a storm. Iron Eagle, a name he once lived by, a name spoken only in war, in danger, in moments that changed lives, a name he thought he'd never hear again, long before he became the dad juggling school lunches, late-night homework, and whispered bedtime stories. Long before he buried the woman he loved and promised his daughter she would never feel alone again. That name Iron Eagle belonged to another version of him, a version forged in steel wings, roaring engines, and missions the world would never hear about. Daniel swallowed hard, forcing down the rush of memories clawing their way to the surface. He blinked quickly, trying to steady his breathing. But that salute from the young pilots outside shattered the walls he'd spent years building. They knew him. They remembered him. And in that instant, he wasn't invisible anymore. His name was Daniel Ross. He had enlisted right out of high school, fueled by a love for the sky and a fierce urge to protect the country that shaped him. Flying wasn't just a job, it was his pulse, his purpose, and he excelled in ways that made people talk. His call sign, Iron Eagle, echoed across bases, whispered with respect in mess halls, repeated by rookies who hoped one day they'd fly even half as fearlessly as he did. But then came that mission, the one no one mentioned, the one that still clawed at him in the quiet hours. They were ambushed, outnumbered, surrounded, caught in a storm of fire and metal. Daniel had led his wing through the chaos, pulling off maneuvers that defied logic and saved lives. But heroism has a cost. The blast that tore into his jet didn't just rip through steel. It ripped through him. Bones shattered, muscles torn. Pain so deep even doctors struggled to piece him back together. Months in hospitals, more months learning to walk without collapsing. And when he finally stood tall again, the Air Force told him what he already feared. His flying days were over. Honorably discharged, medals pinned to his chest, speeches about bravery, yet to Daniel, it felt like someone had cut the sky away from him and left him drifting. And when his wife died, not long after, the identity he clung to disappeared altogether. He wasn't Iron Eagle anymore. He wasn't a legend. He wasn't a soldier. He was just Daddy, and for his little girl, that was enough. It had to be. No, years later he sat quietly in seat 4-2A, just a regular passenger on a routine flight. A nobody, a face in the crowd, but the sky never forgets its own. The salute outside the window hung in the air like a blessing, like a silent prayer carried on the wind. In the cabin, a soft round of clapping began, hesitant at first, then spreading row by row as people realized what they had just witnessed. A little boy peered over his seat, eyes wide with wonder. Mom, is he a hero? Daniel felt his throat close, emotion choking him. He lifted a trembling hand toward the window, pressing his palm gently against the glass as if reaching for the salute being offered to him through the clouds. The jet pilot on the other side dipped his wing in a slow, deliberate swipper gesture reserved only for the highest honor. And for that brief moment, Daniel wasn't the man struggling to hold his life together. He wasn't the widower fighting through lonely nights. He wasn't the father trying to be everything at once. In that single motion, he was whole again. He was seen. 2 flight attendants walked up quietly, their steps soft, eyes shining with respect. One leaned close, her voice barely above a whisper. "They don't do that for just anyone." Daniel tried to answer, but the words tangled in his throat. What could he say? That he didn't feel like a hero anymore. That most days, he was just trying to make sure his daughter felt safe, felt loved, felt like her world wasn't falling apart. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the scars and the grief, a truth rose up slowly. Once a guardian of the skies, always a guardian. The uniform might be folded away, the call sign might fade into memory, but the heart, the protector's heart, never stops beating. When the plane finally touched down, a heavy silence filled the cabin. Not awkward, not tense, reverent. As passengers filed out, many paused beside Daniel. Some shook his hand. Some pressed their lips together to hold back tears. Children stared up at him like he was a walking legend, a story come to life. By the time Daniel stepped into the terminal, his phone buzzed. He lifted it, and the screen lit up with the face of the one person who mattered most, Daddy. His daughter squealed, her smile so wide it erased the years of pain in his chest. And in that moment, he understood something he never allowed himself to believe. He had never stopped being Iron Eagle. Every sacrifice, every night spent wiping tears, every early morning packing school lunches, those were missions too. Those were battles worth fighting. And she was the reason he always won. Before I bring this story to a close, let me say this. If this moment touched your heart, if it made you pause and think about the silent burdens others carry, please like this video, subscribe to Whispers of Kindness, and share your thoughts below. It helps keep stories like this alive. It honors those who protect without ever asking for praise. And so, the single dad who thought he was just another face in the crowd walked out of that airport a little taller, a little steadier. He carried not just the weight of his past, but the strength of his legacy. The skies had saluted him one last time, but the greatest salute came from the little girl. Why?